and it looked nice, but I don't think they've told us anything about what's going to be happening. I like the first and started the second. Okay, perfect. What'd you think about it? Another one of those games I was enjoying, but then started on something else. Yeah, we gotta be careful with RPGs. The transition from Dragon's Age 3 to where I was like, imagine all the build up in MCU, only to have the Avengers in-game change more than half the cast, throw the main plot to the side, and totally water down the tone, gravitas of what the woke agenda BS. Well, you have to go into what woke agenda BS. Because if we're talking about Tosh, we didn't see any of that until nearing the end. That was like 80 hours in. Right? And that's literally the only thing I can think of. Because Dragon Age has always had powerful leading females, right? Dragon Age Origins, your healer, and I don't remember her name, right? Absolutely amazing cast. Priest, right? Priestess, she was a complete badass too. She was also lesbian, right? Or bisexual. Which, speaking of that, they also had another one that was bisexual. And if we're talking about them throwing it in your face, they talked about it in game, right? So as far as what woke is, you really have to tackle that. Is it the black people? Because that would hurt me a lot, right? Because guess what? Black people were there, or people of darker skin tones, because, you know, this is a fantasy game, something completely different. Look at Sten back in Dragon Age Origins, right? Then we go to Inquisition, and that was there too. So you really have to pick at which one. Because if we're also talking about Taj talking about, hey, you know, I'd rather be referred to as this and that, and the scene where what's the name did push-ups, even that doesn't make any sense. Because guess what? That character, which was a character from Dragon Age 2, decided to do that on her own as for her to memorize, yo, this is who this person is, and that's my friend. So you have to really talk about that. I don't have, okay, you see, that's already wrong. Because more or less, you don't have to memorize all of that. It's about respect, right? And it's about people telling whatever story that they want. Don't shove it down my throat with every chance. Sexuality is not what defines a character. It did with her. A lot of identity in who you are. A lot of people go through this identity crisis as they're growing up all the time, right? I did, because you may feel pressured in certain areas of society to not be who you think you are, right? And that happens to all of us. Your parents are pressuring you to be a real estate agent rather than you wanting to go off to be what you are. Your parents want you to not dye your hair a certain color because it should be this, even though it might naturally be this, right? This happens all the time. And in this term, right, in this case, when you look at Taj from where they're from, right, the Qunari, and we got that from Inquisition. The Qunari are very, very, very reserved, right? Look at what was going on with Bull, right? Hey, so ever since I was growing up, right, I've always been a little mischievous little fuck. And you want to know what our priests saw? They noticed that because of my personality, that I'd be perfect to be a spy. Everybody loves me, and not only that, I can smash fucking skulls real well. And then you want to know what happened to Bull? Remember, there was a point when Bull was going through everything that he went through and kind of started going insane, right? All this death, all this tricking people, while all at the same time, guess what? He lost an eye protecting someone who identified as a man, right? Was a woman, wanted to be a man, wanted to be a warrior, lost an eye for that person. That entire life, an identity crisis, right, weighed on him so much that he felt like he had to deliver himself to his priests, to their leaders, who literally had to torture him to the point of making him believe that he was fine. That's insane, right? So you take Taj, right, which their mother was already talking about, yo, we have a word for people who are like this, and it's like their species hasn't exactly moved past that to accepting, because the people are in charge are so dead set, right? So Taj is like, yo, this doesn't exactly work for me. I actually prefer this a little bit more. And even then, in the story, constantly, we have seen characters accidentally misidentify them, right? And you want to know what happens, right? Who would probably be the most? Oh my god, maybe not Harding. Elf guy, right? Elf guy might be like, yo, hey, how are you doing, my dude, right? Or whatever, right? And then he'd be like, oh shit, my bad, right? He'd be like, oh shit, my bad. I didn't mean to call you this. And then you know what Tosh would say? They'd be like, oh, I didn't even notice that you said it. Because it's not constantly on their mind. Because they've said it in game, like, yo, I'm not even sure what I should call it. They've even made a joke about that in Velgard. Yo, there's so many letters to all this stuff. I don't know if I'm this, I don't know if I'm that or that, but they said that it felt good trying to figure it out for something that fit them, right? And that's ultimately the story they were telling on their side. I had someone had to say that you only hunted one dragon or two, and that there were no other dragons, and that's insane because when you go into all this woke stuff, but you have to lie to try to make the story seem worse. We hunted so many dragons in that game, right? Tosh loved hunting dragons, right? Just like Bull, their nipples got so goddamn hard when they fought a dragon. That shit was wild, right? And so it's like it's all there, but this is a character's own personal growth, which is in every single game, right? So it's like you got to I would urge you not to think like that. Yeah, and everyday Joe, sure, when you recruit someone for a team to prevent the world from ending, an X character goes, oh my sexuality this, and that they didn't know, then sorry, I don't want that in my team for a practical standpoint. Bull, yes, had a similar situation, but it was not defining him. It was only brought up when asked about it, rather than being a sore thumb. It literally defined him. What do you think that choice at the end of his major character choice? When his people came in, you know, what happened when his people were like, yo, sacrifice all of your people, then come back home with us. He had a choice to sacrifice them all. In the whole game, he was like, yo, I am loyal to my people. But you know what your choice could have been? If you happened to bond with Bull, he changed his mind. He killed his own people. He prevented them from being killed, right? And betrayed the Kunari culture to protect them. This spy who the whole time was like, yo, wrong? Where? How was that wrong, though? How? Because he never went back home. He can't anymore. He betrayed them. And, okay, you want to pick other characters? You want to pick other games, too? I can pick Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Right, I can pick some characters from there, because if we're talking about sex is not there. What did you? Let me see. Practical saying Bull had similar situation, but there was not defining him. Only brought up. Okay, what about what's his name from Ogren? Not Ogren, from Dragon Age 1. Dwarf Red Beard. All that guy did was talk about sex. All he did was drink and talk about sex. Right? And if you want me to be very specific, all he did was talk about pussy all day. He had a character arc. His only character arc was him mentioning that he had a wife or this girlfriend. I'm pretty sure it was a wife. You go through that whole thing, meet her at a bar, and she's like, bro, this guy is basically just fucking stalking me. We dated once and I was fucking done. Go home, dude. That was his whole fucking thing. Other than him being involved with the dwarves, but it's the same thing with Taj. That never became a thing until like this third act, right? When they had to fight a god and they all fucked up. Every single one of them fucked up because they had some personal issue. That's what an RPG is. You're usually helping out your characters with their own individual issues. You don't have to, which you didn't have to do that in Dragon Age Veilguard either. You absolutely did not have to, but you can, because they're characters, right? They're multifaceted, they're interesting, they have a deeper level to them, like everybody does, right? So Taj, right, guess what, they've been a dragon hunter this entire time. They've been killing dragons, right? But this one thing happens to be bothering them, and it also happens to be the one reason they fucked up, right? During that moment, everybody's different, right? All of this stuff is going to affect everybody in a completely different way, which is okay to have a silent protagonist that doesn't feel much. It's projected onto the player, but we can't be upset when we see that happen in a game, right? If the choice came down to who he valued, during the mission you did as you were told, his team gets wiped, thus having much loss. With the mission, if you did as you were told, his team gets wiped, thus having lost much of his reason for staying, for caring about the world outside his people. If you saved his people, then he has more reason to stay. Regardless if you fucked him or not, his sexual drugs. If you, we're talking about personal growth and change as a whole. That's all part of your identity. Taj, that had nothing to do with them being sexual, right? It was literally just their identity. A lot of people refer to that as something sexual, but it's not. That was just who they were, right? If someone says that they're a lesbian, it does not have anything necessarily to do with sex. It just says that what they prefer, right? But it has nothing to do with sex. That's weird. That's like saying just because the character mentions that he's with a girl, that would be the same thing. And if that's the case, all of it is just DEI stuff. But it's only being called that because it's in an area that, well, frankly, you wouldn't prefer. But then where does that stop? Right? Because we have people all over the place now making games that should be allowed to create whatever stories they have. And even then, that was still in fucking Dragon Age Origins. In Dragon Age Origins, I could fuck one of those weird pig things, right? So what the fuck, right? But people were fine with that, but as a joke. But even Taj is mentioning it, and even then, that wasn't the full grasp of their character arc either. A big chunk of their character arc was also hunting a dragon, right? But after they hunted the dragon, what happened? They were like, yo, you know what? I hunt dragons all the time. Why the fuck am I afraid to talk to my mother about this? Because talking to family is painful. You can talk to anybody about almost anything else, but family is always hard, right? And that goes for any of these characters, most likely. Most identity practical, straightforward. Likes to kill that's also Taj. So I'm confused. Is terrified of ghosts. Taj is terrified of zombies. Absolutely loyal to his mercenary company. Taj is 1000% loyal to us. And those that show him respect and honesty. Taj. His sexuality, not so much. It kind of is, because his people never really had a problem with that. To be honest, this was something new as Taj was discovering themselves. Right? Because if you want to say that was the whole thing involving Dorian. Dorian's literal entire story was, I'm gay, family hate me, father tried to use blood magic to make me not gay, I hate family, fuck all you people. Right? Bull can be with them. So if that's the case, that is the exact same thing. How am I wrong? What was wrong about that? Where did I mention about lose it about Dorian's backstory there? Dorian didn't care about gay. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Because he had a problem. No, he didn't have a problem talking about it, but he did before with his family. He tried having to hide that for a while. It was only when his father went to the worst route did he finally just leave. Right? He was still stuck. He was still having trouble identifying with himself. right? And even then, that was painful to him. So what you're saying is that the only problem here is that Taj had, as a completely different individual, had to adapt to themselves to find their own answers, right? He cared about his own father, wanting to change him, not wanting him for who he is. Okay, Taj's mother also tried to change her, more or less, right? She couldn't do anything about it, and she loved them enough that they were just willing to let it go. But it was the same thing, right? That is the arc, not the sexual part. Okay, so you're just choosing to ignore the fact, because the only difference is that you're saying here, like, every list off that you went off for Bull can be applied for Taj, right? And the only thing different here is that Taj was trying to discover themselves, while Dorian was more or less solid with who he was, but through his background lore, had already went through all of this shit involving his family. So you didn't like that? It probably hasn't. Like, have you played Velguard? That is a good question, Adric. Have you played the Velguard series? Have you given it a try? Right? Yeah, because that's not making any sense. It's like, if the only reason, because everything you literally listed off from Bull, Tosh is right there. And the only difference is that Tosh is still discovering themselves. I have not played it. Are you kidding? Budget is strict. Won't be spending money for something. Well, they had it for free on PlayStation. They had it for Xbox Game Pass, I think. So I'm just asking. You may have played it, right? So nothing to do with budget. It's just a question, right? Your argument just went out the window. Yeah, because you have to make sense. That doesn't make any sense. It was, okay, you play BG3, right? You like BG3. Everything that people claim is woke is in BG3, but one thing we've seen is that people who like BG3, which is all the same people, are willing to let it go just because they like it, right? Look, ultimately it wasn't on Game Pass, but they shit been on $20 bucks for free on PSN. Yeah, it's like, play it eventually if you want to. Ultimately, what we're gonna do is move on from this, because unless you have a better example, that literally is making no sense, right? You have to. I'm just gonna say, like, I hope that you rethink certain things, because those same woke DEI people haters, right? They don't like people like me being a part of anything, even though it's just there and makes sense for whatever story you're trying to tell, right? So I would just urge you, right, think about it, right? That's all I'm gonna say about that, because there's nothing wrong with it. You have thousands of people now making video games, right? All of these people are trying to tell their stories, and none of them are wrong. It's really simple. If you don't like it, don't play it, right? So 66% are review. Wait, there's literally one dialogue that happens with Taj in the entire game that is optional, where she addresses her identity. Otherwise, she's mostly closed off, sarcastic, resting bitch face Yeah, exactly. The literal same thing as Bull. Bull had a constant resting bitch face, right? For like 20, 30 hours of the game. And then suddenly, yo, I've noticed you've been hitting on me real hard, right? And then he suddenly opens up. Same thing with them, right? So basically 66% of the reviews being negative, it's for bullshit reasons in your opinion. Well, a lot of them, not all of them, of course not. Sometimes you're just not going to like a game, right? That's okay. Sometimes you're going to like a game that nobody else likes. But you can't say that there aren't just a bunch of review bombs in there. Do you want me to pull up a couple of them for you right now? I also mentioned the guy who said you only hunt one dragon or two, right? Unless you think I'm making that up. Okay, sure. Even if I'm making it up, right? You can still look at the reviews there, right? Which I'm not making it up, because I literally have no reason to lie, right? Heaven forbid a game represent a living world. Yeah, don't have console. That's fine. All right, you don't have a console. Whenever you one day, if you happen to play it, hopefully you'll play it, right? Because I thought it was okay, right? User reviews. User reviews are where you're gonna see most of the lies constantly. That's even worse. That's like saying YouTube dislikes are the tell all for if something's bad, when we also have people complaining about every Star Wars episode or anything in general. And if you take out anything involving DEI, you'll still get mad that the people still get mad of something about Star Wars and will review bomb that shit. It's the same shit as this, right? We have a big group of people who claim, frankly, that they hate black people, they hate gay people, they hate this because of that, and then they try to hide their excuses. They try to hide their racism. Let me just be real with that. They're trying to hide their racism, right, behind this game is bad, right? Which is fucked up, first of all, right? And then what else do they bring in everybody else who might feel somewhat of the same, because more or less someone there might have a problem with homosexuals. They might have a problem with that. They might have a problem with that. Women in the video game industry aren't that attractive anymore. Who frankly gives a fuck because you're playing a video game, right? And then you have to really ask yourself, why is this a problem? And who are these people guiding them, right? Because it's been proven that a lot of these people don't believe in that. It's an easy money maker, right? Because most of these games are fun. Most people are fine. Sex is fine. We can't even talk about that properly without a bunch of people losing their fucking minds, right? Which is why a big chunk of these DEI woke genre people right now also freak out about it, right? When you bring up certain things. Did you know the woman from Expedition 33 who has no shoes on and she floats around, right? Or her and the woman with the rapier. I found out she was 16 not too long ago, and it turns out there's a bunch of people right now pedophiling her, right? I don't know what the fucking term is, right? They're sexualizing her hard in the bikini and going online and doing that when they found out. And it's like, what the fuck is that? Why? It's amazing how there's also a bunch of Republicans that have been pointed out doing this to kids and everybody else as well, right? Because guess what? They're also on the side of this DEI woke stuff because they're obviously trying to project and distract for they can do their own shit while making it seem like fucking oh my god, people who want to read books for kids are the worst ones when they're fucking not, right? Like we can sit here and break this down, and the DEI woke side will always lose because there's no real argument there. It's so fucking flimsy that if you really use some logic in there, it breaks down, which is making me sad about you because you were showing some sound of mine. True, I didn't play it. That does not mean I can't have an opinion. But when that, okay, I can't have an opinion, but after watching what it is about, you think I'm here wanting to hate on stuff. I've been expecting and hoping Dragon Age 4 was awesome, but it's Belgard, awesome, but it's not. Choices don't matter. Story is still. Puzzles are piss. Easy preschool stuff. Okay, let's remove Belgard out the way, because frankly, Belgard doesn't mean a fucking thing right now, right? When the opinion can hurt people, it's wrong. Like you mentioned before, there's so many letters when it comes to the sex stuff or identification of people, right? Even if you don't like that, there are people physically being targeted for that and being killed. People who look like me are physically being targeted and being killed. There is a reason why people who look like me are typically afraid or get very nervous when there's a cop driving near them, right? There is an actual reason. The problem is that a lot of these people, when we mention that there's a problem, they think it's a direct target on them when it's not. It's literally just targeting those with an issue, right? Who actually have the issue. But now somehow this has gotten out of control because, once again, if someone is physically being hurt for trying to just be themselves and it literally hurts no one else, you are just wrong. You are wrong. I don't know how else to say that. I can literally ignore anything else happening in the world that does not involve me or does not harm anybody else. Right? If I can do that, I know you can. Right? Because I'm tired of it being shoved in my face. How? That is why I don't mind being about it. Everyone wants to do their own private time in the bedroom. Okay, so you're saying you're tired of being thrown in your face. This is Dragon's Dogma 2, one of your favorite games. You bought that, right? But you did not buy Belgard. How is it being thrown in your face when you didn't purchase it? Right? You get me, right? That's like saying a cheeseburger is always being thrown in my face, which it kind of is. You have commercials everywhere and it's America. But I'm also not buying those cheeseburgers, right? I'm not overindulging, right? What's wrong with a pride parade? There's a parade for almost every fucking stupid fucking thing. You also don't have to go to the pride parade. You know who pride parades are for? People celebrating pride, right? It's kind of like Black History Month. This is a month for people celebrating Black history. It doesn't hurt you. It's literally one of those things like, yo, Black people be tight. Everybody be tight, right? Most people have a month for stuff like that. So what's wrong? Right? Oh, he ended up saying something bad or even worse. All right. Yeah, it's okay, you guys. Thank you for banning them. Because I can talk about this all day if I fucking have to. Right? Don't ever think something's being thrown in your face. It's not. Right? Because first of all, it doesn't matter who you are. If you think that way and still think you support it, like even if your one support, especially in this supposed movement, is gay people throwing stuff in face, it still hurts people like me. You're literally targeting everybody this involves, and you can't pick and choose. You can't, right? So anybody listening, please understand where I stand, and please, if you think you might have a problem with it, think about it, because none of it's hurting you, right? No one's going up and molesting you, and even if they did, that's just a problem with the fucking person, right? Thank you, you guys. I mean, it's gonna happen. I don't have a problem talking about it. I mean, it kind of took away from the game, so that I will apologize to you guys. That I will apologize to you guys. But I have no problems talking about it. Let me see. He's casting spells. Let me see. I really believe people are mistaking you for a young Ripper. Real? I hope not. And Elite Adric, thank you very much for being there. I greatly appreciate that. Everybody who had to sit through that, I'm sorry if it got uncomfortable, but because I am streaming, right, and I am meeting a bunch of people, it is a responsibility of mine to talk about it when it does come up, right? And I have no problems talking about it if I have to. But I am glad that I know amazing people like you. He's casting something big. Really quick, after I'm done killing everything. We fully support you. Thank you, Freezer. Hell yes. I've seen you kill enough people in this game to really understand that. Thank you so much. My thing is, truly safe places are actually very rare. There are well, you know, you gotta moderate anything, which, hey, Adric and Elite were taking care of it, so that's great, right? I do need more moderators, so actually, I think an easy one would be bam. Now they can throw people off cliffs here too. Example: D&D striking, taking about racism in the game or whatever. Waffle Black Goo and improvised neighborhood dealing with racism in Ferguson. Guess who had the wrong opinion? Jesus. Sometimes it feels easy to deal with like directly racist people after dealing with people like that. You know, it's not. You know, yeah, which sucks because it's like you shouldn't have to be trained for it though. It sucks that you have to. Going through the experience makes you ready because no one should ever have to go through that, right? It's crazy because on the same level as like you could knock out everything he was talking about, and it's like okay, you realize by sharing that and saying that it also reflects your opinion about what he does care about, which would be women, right? It's like that's not a good look at all, and you're definitely not supporting them. Hold up, I thought we were just here. I'm just gonna read this out to you guys. This is what he just sent me. My thoughts are we disagree on woke agenda stuff. By the way, it was recently uncovered that Sweet Baby Inc., of course, that's just another group that shoehorn in whenever you're trying to prove some point, because Sweet Baby was a psyop by the Canadian government. So he just said Sweet Baby Inc. was a psyop by the Canadian government. Why are you throwing Canada in here now? What did they do? And it's just that by the end of the day, opinions and points of views and all that is being affected by context, be it from situations one lives through, is exposed to, or is raised to, and it stands for me that video games was not worth my money from what I had seen of it, heard about it, or okay, but then you could just leave it at that. He just sent another response. That's the thing. Okay, so he essentially what he's breaking, aside from that crazy bit at the start, what he essentially just broke it down to is I did not like what was being presented in the video game, so I didn't buy it. Leave it at that. Leave it at how many people here like sports games? I don't. I don't like Batman sport unless there's a dragon throwing a football in there. I'm probably not gonna buy it, right? And that might actually be fucking cool. But yes, you could leave it at that and just be done, but that's not the case. There's another thing he's just a stream. I did say you are impossible. Have a nice stream. I'm done. For me, that at least you are impossible from what I know being self-taught in English means. Okay, so they're saying that English isn't their first language. I don't know how much that is true, but let's just go with it, right? No reason not to believe it for now. We don't seem to agree on anything, and we agreed with a bunch of stuff before, right up until DEI and woke, right? That's when that stopped, right? And it's not offensive. Wait, I know. Must have missed a. Okay. This isn't going to take that long. Oh, you can? Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so I'm glad that you can hear this, which is interesting if you were banned. So, being... Yeah, because I was ultimately getting ready to type to you that I'm going to explain to this later. Right? If that is not your first language, fine. Right? Fine. You didn't understand the phrase. But it's like we were agreeing with so much. Right? We even with just the conversations about where they went with Velgard, we were agreeing about that. Right up until the point of DEI and woke. Because there is no real conversation there. Because what that means from that other end is nothing but if it's not my way, it's bad, right? And bad is me being very generous with that. Because it's not just bad. There are a bunch of people right now spouting that want people just to die. And we see it every day, right? I'm banned from the chat, not from stream entirely. Okay, fine, okay. Fine. I'm glad you're able to listen, right? Only one way for me not to watch is to report and block you. That's actually very interesting. Is that their way for Twitch to still make money? That's not what the topic is right now. It doesn't matter, because that is interesting that you can block someone and they can still watch you. I'll say that is a problem. People who are rational have. There's no conversation there, but we still have to have a conversation, and that's what I'm talking. That's what you just said, Slacker. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Chad, because we were having an interesting conversation, right? We were talking well to each other, right? Up until that point, because once again, that's not really a conversation, right? That's now just a whistle for people who lean heavily on the right towards other people not wanting to exist, right? So more than anything, I will urge you, right, to think about it. Just think about everything we've talked about, right? Because it's like, yeah, people are just now expressing more of what they want. And it's not like there isn't stuff with that there. We can still buy a bunch of games where it's just mindless, senseless killing. I love those, right? But that's okay. That's all I'm gonna say, right? For now, right? Like I'm glad that you're still watching, right? Hopefully you're enjoying, right? But it's like, yeah, like Adric, Feaserburn, Elite is like you're hurting. That phrase alone, that term hurts a lot of people just because, right? And a lot of people on that same end who sit up there and say that when another group does it for the simple fact of like expressing that there's something wrong, those same groups will be like, okay, what they really want is just to hurt us, when that's not at all the truth, right? I am 100% and will always be 100% for everybody being able to be together, right? Support one another, enjoy something, because who we are as people shouldn't get in the way unless it's literally just about hurting somebody else for the sake of it, right? And unfortunately, that is what that is.